Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jake Stu.
And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Tyler, aka Mind of a Nerd. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing great. I am excited to talk about this unfortunate abomination, but I'm excited. I'm excited nonetheless.
That's right. Today we are talking about the final Michael Bay Transformers: The Last Knight. This was released in 2017, directed by Michael Bay, of course, and written by Art Markham and Matt Holloway and Ken Nolan, from a story by Akiva Goldsman, Art Markham, Matt Holloway, and Ken Nolan, and starring Mark Wahlberg, Anthony Hopkins, Josh Duhamel, Laura Haddock, Isabella Merced, or actually, she's credited as Isabella Moner, I'm not sure. In this one, Jared Carmichael. We get a little cameo from Stanley Tucci, and a few other people are in this movie. But this was the fifth, like I said, and final Michael Bay Transformers movie. And I had not seen this since I saw it in the theater. And walking out of the theater, I remember thinking, that was not great. But I don't remember hating it. But watching this movie yesterday was a struggle. It was hard to get through. This is easily the worst out of all the Transformers movies we've done so far.
Yeah, Tyler and I were talking throughout the day about it, and I was telling him there were plenty of times where I wanted to drive off a cliff to avoid watching this movie. It's pretty excruciating.
So a lot of people struggle with the question of what's your favorite movie of all time? What is the best movie you've ever seen? But it's a hard question, because one day you wake up, oh, it's this movie. The other day it's this movie. I did not have the answer to what is the worst movie you've ever seen in your life until I saw this movie opening. I saw this movie opening day. I've seen every single Transformers movie other than the first one in the theater, which I'm saddened by. But I'm a defender of this franchise, actually. I love pretty much all of them. Even Age of Extinction, I can enjoy more than dislike. This is without a doubt. This is one of the first times I ever saw a movie in the theater and walked out genuinely angry.
That's funny. And so, see, I didn't have that reaction because I don't remember. Like I said, I think I was just like, another bad Transformers movie, because I had kind of remembered not liking Age of Extinction. However, when we rewatched that recently, I actually found myself kind of enjoying that film. I was surprised by that. Not the case with this one. There was very few enjoyable moments in this movie. The story is like all over the place. Part of me, I paused it at one point, and I think I was almost an hour into the movie, and I was like, I don't know what this movie's about. Like, there's so many different things happening, and I guess they're supposed to connect, but it doesn't feel like they do.
It's weird. I watched the trailers again, like just right now. For some reason, I was like, I want to watch the trailers. Watching all four of these, and then watching this movie, it feels so weird because it doesn't feel like a natural progression off of Age of Extinction. The only part of it that kind of comes off of that is the whole, Optimus is going to find his creator thing.
Right.
And I guess Mark Wahlberg.
Sure.
But other than that, it's just like, wait, this is following the last one? But I thought the Transformers were good again after they kind of saved China.
Right.
I guess they're not now.
Yeah, they're all illegal now. And then, this is another thing. Well, they're supposed to be. It says like they're all illegal on Earth except in Cuba, which is bizarre. Because he said Castro lets them sunbathe on their beaches. It's like, why do Transformers need to sunbathe? Anyway, they're supposedly all illegal on Earth, but then when those kids go into the like alien contamination zone, the I don't know what you call them, the robots that are the Sentinels, I guess you could say.
The Ed 209.
Yeah, from RoboCop. Exactly. Yeah,
that's pretty much what it was.
That's exactly
what it
was. They go after the kids, even though there are Transformers in that zone. Like,
I made the same note.
What is going on? And yes, the TRF guy or whatever I can't remember. Is that what it's called? TRF? Yeah.
Yeah,
so. TRF.
Those guys are like, they seem to be kind of going after the Transformers, and they're like, oh, we got kids in the zone. You know, we got to protect those kids. Those Sentinel things from RoboCop are all about killing the kids. And they don't see, like, Squeaks is there, and they don't care about him at all. It's just it's this movie's just has so many weird problems like that.
Yeah, I made the note at that part. I simply said, "Someone saw RoboCop." ... And then I made the other note of, what exactly is Canopy? I don't know what he is. Like, obviously he's a Transformer, but I'm like, He doesn't transform into anything, and he's got like part of like the Earth on his back. I was like, well, that's new.
Well, stuff like that I wasn't thinking about, because my main focus for this movie was just trying to figure out what it was about.
Yeah,
what is like? My objective was trying to figure out this plot, because, like you said, it's all over the place. This is just a bizarre movie.
Yeah,
it is.
And as far as, the Transformers go, as movies, none of them are really great.
Sure.
From an objective standpoint, but I think all of us here have enjoyed all four of them up until this point. Yeah, even Revenge of the Fallen, which is not good.
Right.
It's still a fun movie.
There's still moments of Revenge of the Fallen that are enjoyable.
Yes.
There's almost nothing in this movie that is enjoyable.
And the thing about Revenge of the Fallen is, yes, the plot is absolutely nonsensical and it makes no sense. And there's
What do you mean? Transformers Heaven makes complete sense. What are you talking about?
Yes, he had a epiphany holding a piece of the cube, even though he held the.
He held space dust and saw robot Jesus.
even things like that. The movie Revenge of the Fallen is very simple. It's just like, what? It's like they have to get these things, and they're like, the map leads to this, and we have to get to that. Okay, this movie. It's like things are happening and you're like, okay, this is what's going on. And then they throw something else at you. You're like, what? Oh, okay. Now this is going on. Wait, what? Because it's like the movie starts and you're just jumping all over the jump.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the scene where Optimus goes back to Cybertron, which I don't even understand how that's possible. We'll talk about that. I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, I made the same note.
You see that part with Quintessa, who's absolutely terrible, and I'm just like, you see, this is kind of interesting. How, yes, it doesn't make any sense how Cybertron is whole, but this is interesting how he's like, this terrible thing happened to Cybertron, and then she, gets in his head of, the humans are at fault. Let's get back at them. It's stupid, it's silly, it's cartoonish, but these are based on toys. Okay. I'm watching this and I'm like, that would kind of be an interesting movie. Like, that only thing, that sole thing. And then you have Optimus going Nemesis the whole movie, not just the last 10 minutes, and I was like, that could have been something cool. But that's like one of 8 movies we get.
Making Optimus kind of the threat from the beginning. He shows up maybe at like the 30-minute mark or something, and now all the Transformers have to fight their leader that they have put their trust in for so long.
Absolutely. That should have been the movie.
Because he's always that person of like, we gotta, we gotta come together,
right.
And more than meets the eye and all that like
he's the Autobots rollout guy.
So going back to what you said about Cybertron, this dude asked Quintessa what happened to my world? What happened to my planet? And I'm thinking, you did, bro. Like, did you forget about the whole war that you had, which is the reason you left Cybertron in the first place? Cybertron was a bunch of cookie crumbs when you left. Like, this is your fault.
Yeah, about the first 10 minutes of Dark of the Moon, apparently.
Hey, did you forget about the other movies? The first movie?
He gave oh my God, I just realized that he gave the exposition in the first movie to Sam and Michaela. Oh my God.
Our world was destroyed. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Oh my God.
We talked about in Age of Extinction, Stu, that was supposed to be kind of a reboot, but it wasn't because they referred to the previous movies. And so I wonder if they were leaning heavily into that whole reboot idea with this film, even though they had not done that with the previous. It's very confusing.
I'm 100% sure that they don't know.
Well, that's actually probably accurate. The writers were like writing stuff, and they're like, "Wait, did Optimus? Did he know about Cybertron?" And the other guy's like, "I don't know. Who cares?"
No, the other guy was like, I don't know, who cares?
I was gonna say he was counting his money. Like, what? I'm busy.
When you went through the writers at the beginning of the episode, I totally expected you to say Tommy Pickles and Chucky Fenster because babies wrote this movie, bro.
Yeah. And it also has, I think are forgiving to Michael Bay. There's a lot of Michael Bay haters out there. And I think you and I can appreciate Michael Bay for certain things. But I couldn't help but write my very first note, because the very beginning of this movie takes place in the Dark Ages. And yes, they're like catapult, fireball, whatever. But I wrote, I like how even in the Dark Ages, Michael Bay has to have explosions. Because these are like fiery explosions going off.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, was combustion a thing in the 1400s?
The best part is that the explosions start during the Paramount logo. It's like, damn, bro, you couldn't wait.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. The beginning of this movie, from the first second the movie starts, you're asking questions, because you get the Paramount logo and some other weird logo, and then it says Paramount presents Hasbro and all that, and then you get the Paramount logo again. Like,
yeah.
Wait, what?
And apparently the Transformers have had like 3 different origins over the course of these 5 films,
right?
Because they were here like in the caveman times,
right?
At Revenge of the Fallen.
Yeah,
they were here in the 40s in that same movie. Now they're here in King Arthur's court,
right?
And I'm like, what?
World War II. They talk about Bumblebee
and World War
fighting
II.
in World War II.
And I'm like, what is happening right now? What is this universe? Did time get... what is happening? Did time turn into chicken soup or something?
I wrote in my notes, why is Michael Bay obsessed with putting Transformers in the past and changing the timeline?
Yeah, he really...
Every movie, he changes it. Every one.
Every single movie.
That's another complaint I have. So, you said caveman times. He was even, there's dinosaur Transformers. So it was even like before that. And I actually hate how they're a throwaway in this movie. Like Grimlock, you see eating cars, and you see, they fight the Decepticons a little in that junkyard scene, and then they're never seen again. And I was like,
there's a lot of that in this movie.
Well, yes,
the kids in the first 10 minutes of the movie, you never see them again.
Well, even
what was the point?
Izzy,
even Izzy's character disappears for like a huge chunk.
And for like an hour, you don't see Izzy.
Yeah, and I didn't write it down, but I remember thinking, like, is she just done? Are we just done with her? And then she shows up in the third act, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess not.
It was just,
and she was heavily featured in the trailer too. You thought she was going to be the main character of this movie.
The second official trailer of the movie, it was her giving a speech, and I was like, this is the worst trailer I've ever seen in my life.
Well, the trailer editors were probably like, what do I do with this? I guess I'll just showcase this girl.
They were that dude when he's standing in front of the computer thing and he's got his hands on his hips and they're just looking at all the clips of the. You know who else disappears for a large part of this movie? Optimus Prime, the man on the poster.
He's like Optimus, and that's I think one of the cardinal sins of this movie. Optimus Prime is like the
one of many,
the D plot or the E plot or the F plot. Like he's just.
And people will say, "Oh, well, Revenge of the Fallen did that." The difference with Revenge of the Fallen is there's a reason why he disappeared.
Right.
There's no reason why he disappeared in this movie.
Right. Exactly.
He's just gone until he shows up at the end, and it's like, why did you do? You marketed the main teaser trailer. The stinger was that, oh my god, did he kill Bumblebee? Even though if you watch any movie trailers, you would realize that didn't happen. But that was like and then on the poster, I think the tagline is like "Rethink Your Heroes" or something.
Right.
Why would you market it like that? Only to just abandon that entirely.
I mean, again, I think the marketing department probably was trying to make something out of garbage, basically, and so it's the whole Optimus Prime thing is so frustrating because he may not be everybody's favorite Transformer, but he's obviously like,
OG.
Exactly, he's the OG, so we want him in the movie.
Yeah,
he's barely in the movie, and then he gets brainwashed easily by Quintessa. And then, and then the fight scene between him and Bumblebee is okay, and then
you see of it,
right, and then he's back to normal, and it's just so pointless, basically.
Yeah. I like I said, I took notes, and my main note was just trying to figure out what the movie is about. Mm-hmm. So, without getting too far ahead to the cardinal sin of this movie. We're going to talk about it, but without getting to that point, basically the last night is Cade. He gets his talisman.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg. He gets his talisman. This talisman chooses him because he has all the qualities of a knight. And see, I'm confused. I gotta go back to my notes and read.
Your own notes.
So yeah, like we said, the government is hunting Cade because Transformers are outlawed, and wherever Cade is, Transformers are sure to follow. So they enlist the help of the Decepticons to help find Cade and the Autobots or the remaining Autobots, which was not a good idea.
No.
Dude, they had Megatron negotiating with lawyers in the middle of the desert.
They did. I mean, that's
bro.
Just saying it out loud is what kind of cracks me up. But you're absolutely right. They did.
That's not even the worst thing about this movie, but it's just like where do you start? Do you start with that? How about Stanley Tucci being Merlin in a Transformers movie?
Okay, so that is the one thing I will give Michael Bay credit for is he realized that Stanley Tucci was so good in Age of Extinction that he had to bring him back. And so he brought him back as Merlin. And that is like, there's only probably maybe two things I like about this movie, and that's one of them.
But I'm just watching it.
I know it's dumb. It's completely dumb. But I was at least glad to see Stanley Tucci. Like, if you're going to have anybody be Merlin, Stanley Tucci's a good choice.
That's
but why
fine.
is Merlin in this movie? Like,
why?
I kind of like the idea that there's this alien technology that Merlin uses and everybody thinks it's magic, and so he gets this kind of he becomes this legendary wizard when really he's just a regular guy who's been given this item. I kind of like that. I just don't think it belongs in this movie. That's a separate movie. Like, it's just so, again, it's very convoluted. And then they're talking about the Wiccans, not to jump super far ahead, but
God.
Oh man,
bro.
They talk about they talk about the Wiccans being, unless I got this wrong, but again, this movie is confusing. They talk about the Wiccans being descendants of Merlin, and so I thought Sam Witwicky was a descendant of Merlin, but then they say that the what I don't even remember her name, Wembley, whatever the British woman's name is the last descendant of Merlin.
Yeah,
I can't remember if it's not Olivia, I don't think, but it's something.
I forgot.
Vivian.
Vivian, that's what it is. Vivian Wembley.
Yeah, okay.
She's the last descendant of Merlin. And so I was like, so
what is Sam?
What is Sam? Exactly.
Just some guy?
Well, that's how
apparently he's just some guy.
Because they say the lineage of the Wickians is gone. I was like, wow, thanks.
And so then it felt like it was too much. You're the one. You're the chosen one. Because it was Kate is the last knight, but you're the last descendant of Merlin. It was just too much.
There are too many chosen ones in this movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then the talisman turns out to be Excalibur, which is kind of cool. I'll admit that's kind of cool.
So but
not cool enough to save the movie.
No, not at all. But that one shot of the talisman turning into the sword, and Mark Wahlberg stopping the knight with the sword. That was the one part of the movie where I was like, that was kind of cool. But that was it. Yeah. Like that was the only moment in this movie that I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. I wrote, what was I want to talk about the positives because this movie is not there. There are good things in this movie.
Are there?
I will say, I mean,
I'm just playing.
The color palette of this movie is very good. I think the colors of this movie pop. Like, you know, all the Transformers look, and that's another thing too. The Transformers, other than a select group that we'll talk about in a second, all the Decepticon, all the Transformers look really cool, and I can identify who's who. Like that.
For the most part, yes. There's a scene towards the end where some Transformers come together and become that horned big Transformer,
which is awesome, by the way. I love that.
That was awesome. Yeah.
When the Dragon Transformer and he get into a fight,
yes,
they look too similar to be able to tell where one ends and the other begins. It's like it was just nothing but silvery metal in a jumble.
That thing has my favorite part of this movie. Legitimately, it's when Optimus kills that thing by taking them all out. That is the one part of this movie that I legitimately get excited to see when I watch it. Because I'm like, that's awesome. Because Optimus is being Optimus. I mean, I'm not going to be annoyed at Optimus Prime being a beast. Like that.
Right. Of course.
You know.
Yeah.
The fact that the color palette is the highlight of the movie.
That's not my
that's pretty bad.
Yeah, like usually, like when we talk about the color palette of a movie, we usually talk about that last, or if it's so good, like if it's like a Denis Villeneuve movie, then you know we'll make a point of. But the fact that we talk about the color palette in a Transformers movie lets you know how bad.
I had said that the designs of the Transformers in this movie are really good. I know you guys don't love the Optimus, like the new Optimus. I've always liked it. Bumblebee looks really good in this movie. I love his Camaro. It's fantastic to me. I love it. Someone who stood out to me, believe it or not, was Barricade. I love Barricade's design in this movie. I love how
the brass knuckles.
Yes, that's such a cheesy touch, but I was like, you know what? I kind of like that. That's kind of, you know, like a cartoony thing, and it's a nice but little touch. There are not many of them, but one funny scene in this movie that I actually like is when they're changing Bumblebee's voice and the voice changes to Alexa. That's genuinely funny. I like that.
Yeah. I actually kind of liked Day Trader because it's voiced by Steve Buscemi, and so I kind of that, and thankfully that character. So I'm glad you brought up the comedy because, in my opinion, this movie tries way too hard with that kind of. I mean, Michael Bay's movies have always been a little chaotic, especially these Transformers movies. But it's like in this movie, it's way too much. There's way too many of those kind of jokey, annoying Transformers that are my least favorite part of almost every Transformers movie. That was one of my favorite things about Age of Extinction is how that one, I think it's Wheels or something, shows up and he's like, I'm out of here, and we never see him again. And this movie had too much of that. But but Day Trader was kind of all right because he shows up and they're annoyed by him, and he kind of it's a little bit funny, and then he leaves, and you never see him again. But a lot of those little transform like Mohawk from the Decepticons. I really did not like
the Decepticons in this movie. Should be a felony.
Yes, I agree. I was about to say I don't like any of the Decepticon designs or any of that,
and it pisses me off. What's the one that kind of looks like Shockwave? That pissed me off.
Oh yeah. I forget his name.
Oh, that really made me mad. I'm like, you put that awesome design on this terrible Decepticon.
No, it's not Berserker.
No, it wasn't Berserker.
Nitro Zeus?
It might have been Nitro Zeus.
No,
not Nitro Zeus.
How do I remember these names?
They're all terrible. There was Mohawk. I don't remember. I'd have to go to that scene.
Before I talk about that, the humor in this movie, the scene in the junkyard.
That junkyard scene goes on way too long, in my opinion. Where
Grimlock is eating the car. I understand what they're going for, because in the cartoon, Grimlock is stupid. Grimlock. Me.
Right, sure.
He's stupid. I get it. But you're supposed to deviate away from that. There are things that work in a cartoon in 1980, and there are things that work in a live-action movie 2017. That is not one of them. I'm watching this. I wrote in my notes, this is the worst scene in all 6, or I guess 7 now, of these movies that exist. This is the worst scene. I remember sitting in the theater being genuinely embarrassed watching that movie, that scene. I was like, this is so awful. He's like, oh, spit it out. I'm like, what? This is the same Dinobot that came in charging with Optimus Prime in Age of Extinction, wiping out everybody? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So something else that I was confused about, and Stu, maybe you can clarify it for me. I'm trying to find the name of that
not
Decepticon. Here it is. I think this is this. It is Nitro Zeus. He looks like
Nitro
Shockwave.
Zeus?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There was also Dreadnought. Berserker they don't let out, and then the one they end up picking instead of Berserker is Onslaught. Okay. Anyway, in Age of Extinction, Megatron is basically Galvatron.
Oh my God! Here we go.
What happened with that? Is he doesn't look like Galvatron? At least I don't think he does. I don't think this design of Megatron is what Galvatron looked like.
No.
So they just scrapped that and made it Megatron, even though he doesn't look. I don't like this design of Megatron. I don't think it looks.
I don't know.
I like it better than Galvatron.
Well, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
I kind of like how the mask, it doesn't go over his face; it goes like under his face. Mm-hmm. I kind of like, and his whatever his weapon was kind of cool, but it doesn't top the amazing design from Dark of the Moon at all.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Nothing will beat Dark of the Moon where he's got like the cloak basically and everything. Yeah, that's awesome.
Man, Mad Max Megatron.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But I remember it's just the continuity of this movie is hilarious. The race car that supposedly died in Dark of the Moon is alive and breathing and well. And somebody might say, well, the other race car is alive. Well, yeah, but at least they poke fun of the fact that he was in a cast and he was like injured and all that. They don't do that with this. They're just like, yeah, he's fine, he's there. It's just like, why? I don't know.
And then they bring back Lennox, Josh Duhamel, wasted.
Yeah. They bring back Simmons too, also wasted
for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Not even in the same location as any other actors either.
Yeah, he's in Cuba.
Yeah, I didn't write it down, but I remember thinking like, why is John Turturro in this movie? I love John Turturro.
I wrote it too.
Why is he in this movie?
The editing when he calls Anthony Hopkins in his last scene, the editing in that scene is atrocious. The editing in this whole movie is atrocious. We have not talked about it yet.
The editing in most Michael Bay movies is not great. I think that's one of the things that makes his movies so chaotic is the editing.
But this one, we haven't talked about it. The aspect ratio.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Oh my God, there's 4 different aspect ratios in this movie. and they change every shot.
Yeah, so Stu, you brought this up when we did Revenge of the Fallen, because Revenge of the Fallen had some IMAX scenes, and I've got the Blu-ray that goes back and forth between the ratios, and I remember in the theater thinking, because there may have been a movie in between, but as far as I know, The Dark Knight was first, and Michael Bay was like, well, I'm going to do that, and so he shot Revenge of the Fallen with some IMAX film cameras, but in my opinion, he didn't do it as well as Nolan, because he chose kind of random shots to have in IMAX, and it went back and forth a little too often. And you brought up this movie. You were like, I don't think it's as bad as The Last Night. I was actually unaware that they had expanded ratios for this movie. And I watched the Blu-ray, and it is constantly going back and forth.
It's unbearable.
And there's actually...
It's so distracting.
It's super distracting. There's one moment where... It's a scene that you wouldn't. It's like, why shoot? I don't know if this was IMAX or if this was like, I think it was probably digital IMAX, the 1.9 ratio rather than the 1.43. But anyway, it's 178 on the TV, and so there's a scene with Vivian where she's with her aunts, and they're trying to like convince her to reach out to a guy from like a classified ad, looks man seeking woman type thing. And she's like, I am not, she's like, I'm not going to do that. And then it cuts to a shot of, I think, her mom, and it's IMAX. And then it cuts away, and it's back to the 2:3:9 ratio or whatever. And I was like, why was that shot IMAX? And then the next shot of Vivian is IMAX again. And I was just like, what in the world is going on?
There's a shot with Izzy. There's a shot with Izzy in the junkyard when she meets the baby Dinobots. It's a close up. That's an IMAX shot.
Yeah.
I'm like, why?
There's not a single scene in this movie that is one consistent aspect ratio.
No, there's not. He cuts back and forth all the time.
I don't understand what he was thinking. And I'm curious for people that saw it in IMAX if it switched.
I'm sure
this movie, I would have an aneurysm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the expanded ratio
you'd have vertigo
shots,
watching this in the theater.
Yeah, pretty much. Some of the expanded ratio shots look pretty decent to me, but it cuts back and forth so much that you can't appreciate it, and like you said, it's super distracting. It's probably part of the reason why I don't know what's going on in this movie is because I was paying attention to that half the time.
And it's worse when to me the best usage of the IMAX is when the Optimus and Bumblebee fight is happening and the thing is rising. First of all, I wrote in my notes, the cinematography in that scene when it's IMAX is out of this world stunning. It looks phenomenal. And when it's fully IMAX and you're seeing the Optimus and Bumblebee fight, for some bizarre reason, that's the best looking footage of the movie. Everything else does not compare to that for me. I was just like, the colors are popping so much and I can see everything. It's so detailed. And then you cut back to Cade and Lennox and it looks so saturated, desaturated and bland.
Desaturated. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm watching a scene right now. They're on the submarine and every time it cuts back to Cade, it's the 2:3:9 ratio or whatever the ratio is. I'm actually not sure what the normal ratio is. It's probably 2:3:9 or 2:4:0, but and then every time it cuts back to like the other submarine, it's IMAX, and now this shot of Kate is IMAX, but this shot of Vivian's not. It's so weird.
I remember watching the trailer and it kept doing that. I was like, why is it doing that? That's weird. I want to go back to that circle or guild of the Witwickians.
Right, sure.
So. This is by far the funniest thing in this movie that's not a joke. They basically say that, among other people, Harriet Tubman and Adolf Hitler were a part of a guild to hide the Transformers in history.
And the Queen of England.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and they say that, like, a pocket watch killed Hitler. The Transformer pocket watch.
Oh, boy.
It sounds fake, but it's not. And then they show Bumblebee in World War II, which admittedly I like his World War II design. It looks pretty cool. But it's just like, why is this needed? Why? Right. For why?
And they cut back and they're like, but he's so nice. And Anthony Hopkins is like, he's been called many things, but nice isn't one of them. And you're just like, this is so weird.
This is stupid. It's like this whole movie, and I'm glad you brought up Anthony Hopkins. I love Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, me too.
He's only in this movie for exposition.
He's the exposition king in this movie. Yep.
The only reason he is here, and that is one of the many crimes of this movie. That's one of the things that makes this movie so hard to watch. The aspect ratio which we discussed, and the fact that 2/3 of the movie, probably more than that, probably 3/4, is exposition. It's Anthony Hopkins explaining things to what's her face and Kate,
Vivian, yeah,
and it's
that scene goes on forever.
Oh my god,
that scene, that
forever.
that first scene where they're all in the house and he's talking about the wiki. That scene feels like 20 minutes long.
A lot of these scenes feel that way. That's how I felt about the junkyard scene. That's how I felt about that scene. It's just, there's
the characters in this movie to me are awful. Every one of them. There's not a single person in this movie that I like.
Why is Gerard Carmichael in this movie?
I don't know. Again, he disappears too.
Izzy is terrible. She's bland as hell. They try to give her something and it's just abandoned. The random NASA dude who's like, oh, I'm going to use physics and math.
Right.
Yeah, let's see how far that one gets you, bro. Who else? The nerd dude that was with Cade, terrible, beyond belief, not funny at all. And then the Transformers in this movie, I guess Bumblebee is the best one. I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
But even some of his standout moments, like when he shoots and kills Quintessa, and he's like stinging like a bee. Oh my god,
that was awful.
That was horrible.
That was the worst.
Megatron sucks. All the Decepticons suck, but Megatron is just like, I wrote in my notes. I was like, they treated him like a bum again. It might be worse than Dark of the Moon.
See, honestly, Megatron, I kind of see Megatron as kind of being meta. Megatron is so done. Like, he even says, like, I just want to go home. He says that.
Which is what everyone in the audience was thinking when they saw this
I just want to get off this planet and go home. Like, Megatron is done. He's not trying to destroy the humans. He don't care about world domination. He just want to get off this planet. For the love of God, get me off this planet.
Let's talk about. Well, I have both cardinal sins lined up because I guess they happen at the same time.
Okay.
Unicron.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Unicron is, other than Megatron, one of the best Transformers antagonists. You know, he's awesome. He's a big floating planet. He transforms and
who eats
planet eater.
Yeah. He's awesome. He is awesome, and I hope that we see him as his actual self in an eventual final movie in this Rise of the Beast new wave that we're getting. We get a line of dialogue in this movie that gave every Transformers fan an aneurysm beyond belief when they heard it, because it didn't sound real until it was confirmed. Oh yeah, it's real. Apparently,
you can't even say it.
Apparently, Earth is Unicron now.
Yes,
Earth is Unicron. You heard right. The planet that you live on is Unicron.
And they go further than this with a post-credit scene that's just downright awful. And it's basically like, no, we weren't kidding. This is real.
I don't even know what to say about it.
My god. That is the most infuriating thing in this entire franchise.
Yeah.
Because not only do you take a dookie all on the lore,
right,
but you insult your audience's intelligence at that point, and it's like, you have got to be kidding me. You
get it.
One of the greatest villains, like you said, he's
an iconic
him and Megatron are
villain. Yeah, exactly.
are neck and neck for Transformers villains, and you make him a dormant thing living inside of the Earth's crust. It is absolutely asinine.
It is. And I get it. They're adapting something. Not everything is going to be the same. I understand that. There's a difference between changing something and absolutely destroying something for the sake of what? Again, for why? For what? What purpose did that serve? Now granted, somebody might say, well, we never got a 7th movie. Well, who was wanting a 7th movie after this?
I'm a Transformers fan, and I didn't even want 5. Right. I was cool with the first 3.
I didn't want 4.
But here we are.
The
thing about it is that, like, because you make Unicron Earth, he can't wake up.
Yeah.
Because once he wakes up, movie's over. Game over.
Right.
It's basically Eternals. If that had happened. The other cardinal sin so I watched the animated one this year for the first time, and I really liked it a lot.
Fantastic movie.
I watched that movie and I was like, yo, Hot Rod is really sick. Like, I was telling John, I was like, yo, in the 3rd act, like,
Dude.
That's awesome. This moment right here, awesome. Look at these Blu-rays. This is every single one. Who is on the cover of every single one? Optimus, right?
Right.
No, I'm making a point.
Yeah.
Who is on the cover of this one? Hot Rod.
Right.
Why is he on the cover of this one? Because Hot Rod saves the universe. What does Michael Bay do with Hot Rod in this movie? He makes him a Lamborghini. Cool. He looks great, except for his head. His head looks stupid. And then he makes him French. And they spend like 5 minutes making fun of, well, he likes the accent. No, I don't. Yes, he likes the accent. No, I don't.
Hot Rod.
And apparently he can stop time now too.
Yeah, that was weird, and I kind of half expected that to not come back, because the other note I wrote, I didn't write very many notes. I kind of gave up writing notes for this movie, but one of them that I wrote was, Bumblebee can take himself apart now. Because that doesn't ever come back.
Yes,
and so
it does.
You don't see it, but after the Optimus fight, you see the little thing.
You see him pulling himself together.
So it doesn't really come back.
Yeah, still, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, where did that come from?
Right. How does he suddenly is able? Yeah, exactly. And so then when Hot Rod stopped time, I expected that to be the only time we saw it. But of course, he does use it again towards the end of the movie to save Cade and Vivian. And I think he uses it like one other time. But it's we talk about that with a previous couple of movies, with Revenge of the Fallen. We were talking about how, like, they just introduced this Transformers technology that is game changing, and it's just a throwaway thing. It's I don't understand what the writers think about. They're like, well, we'll just say this one can stop time or slow down time.
Yeah, this one can give other Transformers their parts.
Right, yeah. I mean, that was a cool scene, though, in that movie. But
it's great, but it's just like, I wish that Transformer could do that.
It's just whatever the story needs, they allow these Transformers to do.
Also, what is the state of the world? Like, is it post-apocalyptic? Is it regular? I can't tell.
I can't tell
because
either.
everywhere that Cade goes is in complete ruins.
Right. Well, I thought
it is just terrible everywhere he is.
Yeah, I thought the alien contamination zone from the beginning that the kids are kind of sneaking into was Chicago, right? So it's like the entire city of Chicago is now just a wasteland. Like, that's insanity. But
I remember watching Age of Extinction. I was like, yo, Chicago got it bad because they had Dark of the Moon happen. I know, exactly. And then they go back in Age of Extinction and blow more stuff up. It's like, damn.
It's like, why do these Transformers hate Chicago so much?
The state of the world would make sense if it was coming off Age of Extinction and was like, no, every Transformer is bad. Which that was another good idea for this movie was, have it be that the humans are going after every single Transformer. That, like, no, all the gloves are off, everyone's a target. And then have some Transformers villain show up and the Autobots and the Decepticons are like, we got to team up to take him down. But, like, you know, we got to work together to take him down, and then they got to compromise with the humans. You know, it sounds a little clunky when I say it, but
no, I know what you mean because that's pretty much what X2 was.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah,
you know, I feel like that would have been a better idea, and it makes sense. You know, but no, they're just like, yeah, we're hunting down all Transformers, and then for some reason the TRF is like, no, let's work with the Decepticons because that's not going to end badly at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way the movie kind of sets it up. They talk about how all Transformers are illegal on the planet now, except for Cuba. But then, like, a scene later, they're making deals with Decepticons. It's bizarre. It's just...
And we haven't talked about this movie yet, but Bumblebee kind of makes fun of that whole concept when they're, you know, when the Decepticons come and they kind of trick the humans, and John Cena's like, why are we working with them? Their name is Decepticons. Like, what is going on here? What are we doing?
Yeah.
The action in the movie, I would say, is good. It's just it's
all right.
You can't. Yeah, it's all right, but you can't get into it because of the aspect ratio, and the other reason is because you don't care about what's happening.
Yeah, that's the biggest.
Like, the action doesn't. The action doesn't really get good until the third act, but you've not third act, but last act, because this movie doesn't really have any acts. But until the last 30 minutes of the movie, that's when all of the good action happens. But by that point, you've lost complete interest, and you're just waiting on the movie to be over.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes the car chase in the second act, where they're running away from the TRF after, you know, all that exposition. I was like, this is shot really well, and there are some moments of that action scene that, like, I love when Barricade's chasing them and Bumblebee shoots him and he transforms his arm while Cade is still in the driver's seat and he shoots Barricade. That's pretty cool, you know, and it's intense. It's just, again, the way it's shot is just ridiculous, you know, like, because you get great IMAX shots of, like, the cars driving and you see it's, like, actually happening on location, which is pretty cool. But then you just get this weird editing, this choppy editing, and then the aspect ratios. It's just like, I can't get invested in this because my eyes are about to bleed out of their sockets because of how stupid this looks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you know, usually with other previous Transformers movies, the action sequences are, like, probably kind of the standout things about the movie, but this one I couldn't get into any of it, and part of that, I think, you know, could be the aspect ratio, but I also just think we just don't care. There's nothing.
We've seen it before.
Yeah, that too.
In every Transformers movie, there's always one scene where everybody can universally agree, like, yo, that was
awesome.
Absolutely awesome. In the first one, it was when Megatron woke up. In the second one, it was when Optimus got Jetfire's parts. In the third one, it was the entire third act.
The last, like, 45 minutes.
Yeah, the last 45 minutes. In Age of Extinction is when Optimus came riding on Grimlock.
Yeah.
Like in this, it should have been the fight between Bumblebee and Optimus, but again, like we said, by that time we you just don't
checked out
care. Yeah. And that should have been the movie.
Yeah.
That should have been the movie. It should have been. It should have been. It should have been the Autobots and Decepticons teaming up to take down Optimus. That should have been the movie.
Yeah. They marketed. That was the other thing they marketed this movie on. It was literally every poster is Bumblebee fighting Optimus. the fight lasts 5 minutes, and of those 5 minutes, you see maybe 30% of it. The rest of it, you see them in the background. You see Tiny Optimus and Tiny Bumblebee smacking each other.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the end of the fight, people want to crap on BVS.
This was so much worse. So much worse. His voice changes, and Optimus just suddenly snaps out of it. What?
Right.
What is that? Like, is there something magic in his voice that just changed Optimus's mind?
I guess it's supposed to be the idea that he hasn't heard Bumblebee's voice in so long, but still, it's just
Stop.
It's like, what? Did it make him nostalgic?
Which is a plot hole. It's a plot hole, by the way, because in the first Transformers, he gets his voice back.
Well, I mean, Optimus doesn't have the best memory. He forgot destroying his planet. So.
Right, that's very true.
Dude, what the hell is the continuity in this movie? It's actually amazing how the same person that made this movie made the other ones, and he destroyed his own continuity.
Well, I think amazing. At this point, I mean, I have to feel like, I mean, I don't know, but because this clearly wasn't an easy movie to make, but Michael Bay obviously was just doing this for a paycheck. Like I just don't feel like he was even invested in it that much. But and on that note too, I've talked about almost every single one of these movies. Steve Jablonsky's score has been amazing. This movie, there's nothing really memorable about it. Maybe the very very end of the movie, maybe. But other than that, it's just it felt to me like even Steve Jablonsky was like, whatever. Like, it just didn't. There was nothing about the score of this movie that really even stood out to me. We've been almost recording for an hour, so we probably need to wrap it up soon, but we have to talk about Cogman. We haven't brought up Cogman yet, which is Anthony Hopkins. Like, I don't think he's a Transformer. He's just an android butler, but he's been around for, according to him, 700 years, even though he acts like he was just activated yesterday because he doesn't understand like social cues, and he's wanting to kill Mark Wahlberg and stuff. It's just that character. That was a prime example of what I was talking about earlier with the humor. Like, that character is just stupid to try to get laughs, and it does not work for me.
Not at all.
It's just the most bizarre character. It's one of those things where it's like, why is this thing in this movie? He just drives Anthony Hopkins around and doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
So personally,
he kind of reminded me of the assassin from Hellboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that was made out of gears and sand and stuff.
I wrote in my notes, I was like, I kind of like him, but I kind of don't. I will say he didn't get a single laugh out of me. He maybe got one laugh out of me. It was when Mark Wahlberg was giving Vivian a bunch of crap, and he was like, "Oh my god, I've had enough of it." He just runs and just tackles Mark Wahlberg. I was like, I mean, you got a physical laugh out of me, I guess. Physical humor is the easiest type of humor to get somebody to laugh at. So, I don't know.
I feel like I didn't mind Cogman at first, but the more he was on screen, the less I liked him. And part of that was just because he turned into a caricature. Where he's like playing the organ and then he's singing he's like singing the background music, and he keeps being told to stop. And then when he's driving the car and it's just, I very much dislike the character.
Also, he wasn't in the final battle either, which was weird considering that Megatron killed Anthony Hopkins.
All right.
Which I wrote in my notes, Anthony Hopkins should have been hamburger meat when Megatron shot him.
Right.
He absolutely obliterated him. Like, it wasn't, he shot him like 2 feet away from him. No, he shot him point blank.
Yeah.
And he went flying. And he just had some dust on him. I was like, what? All right, I guess.
The only other note that I wrote that I haven't mentioned is about Anthony Hopkins, and it just says Anthony Hopkins is too good for this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Again, maybe he needed the paycheck too. I don't know. But this movie, it just makes me sad that Anthony Hopkins is in this movie.
I'm sure he was bored. I'm sure he's like, I ain't doing nothing else, may as well.
A lot of people he was like, shoot, they're about to kill me in the Thor movie that's coming out this year. I might as well.
Might as well do some Transformers too.
You know, a lot of people are better than this movie. Mark Wahlberg is better than this movie. He's terrible in this movie, but he's better than this. You know, Josh Duhamel, I think, is a very underrated actor. He's really good. He's better than this. You know, you have John Goodman in this movie. One of the best actors still working. Like, what do you do? And Ken Watanabe, even though he has like 2 lines, he's still voicing Drift.
Right.
Like, all of these people don't need this. What an absolute waste of resources. That's what it is. Like, all the components were there to make a solid movie, and you just did whatever you wanted, and I guess that's how Michael Bay wanted to go out.
It seems like a weird movie to end on. I don't know. The only other thing I can think of is like Michael Bay said he would do it before he even read the script, maybe. I don't know, though. I mean, this was also back when I remember Paramount said they were going to create like a Transformers universe, and Akiva Goldsman was like the head of that writing, room or whatever.
14 writers.
And then this movie came out. Yeah, and we were just like, what? This is what we have to look forward to?
Because they had announced, it's funny, we're still kind of getting what they announced, because they had announced Bumblebee, which we got, and then we got they had announced Transformers 7, which I guess is Rise of the Beast, but it's obviously not the Transformers 7 they were mentioning. Right. And then they announced Transformers 1, which we're getting soon, which is the animated prequel. And then they announced one that I won't say for people who haven't seen Rise of the Beast, but it has to do with the ending of that movie. Right. They announced something along those lines, Yeah. So I mean, I guess they stuck to their guns, kind of. Shoot, at least they were. And maybe
the silver lining is if this movie had done well, maybe those movies, maybe Transformers 7 would have still been in this universe. And so the fact that this movie sucked so bad, we got an actual good Bumblebee movie and a somewhat okay, Rise of the Beast movie. But I don't know. Like you said, Stu, we're Transformers fans, but we didn't even want 4 or 5.
I'm angry. Can we wrap this up?
Sure. So, Stu,
I'm sitting here steaming over this movie, man.
Actually, Tyler, since you're our guest, we'll start with you. So we usually rate things out of 5. You can do half stars if you want. So what would you rate Transformers: The Last Night?
This is a half a star. It's dark. It is, like I said, it's the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. There are worse movies, but this is the one movie that every time I think about it, I'm just like,
you're just angry. Yeah.
Literally anger from inside out, like flames coming out of my head and my ears. It's the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. It's awful.
Yeah. I'll go before Stu because I think Stu's still upset. I was prepared to give this movie 1 star, but the more we talk about it, the less I feel comfortable doing that. So yeah, it's a half a star for me too. I can't. It's easily the worst movie that we have talked about on this podcast, I think.
Wow.
There's just barely anything enjoyable about it. I do not see myself ever watching this movie again.
Yeah, I only rewatched this movie when I have to review it. Like, I watched it this year because I did a review series for it. And I think I had watched it one more time because one of our friends hadn't seen it. We were like, well, we'll take the bullet. We'll watch it with you. We didn't even finish it.
Right, yeah. I was going to say, will I get rid of my Blu-ray, though? No, because I'm a completist and I have to have all the Transformers movies. Yeah. All right, Stu, let's hear it.
This is one of, if not the most disrespectful movie ever made. I hate it. And the sad part about it is I own it twice. And I've seen this movie 5 times now.
Wow.
This is absolutely the last time
that
I will ever watch this movie.
Do you have like a steelbook of it or something? Because I know you've got like the
Yeah, I got the steelbook. The steelbook was $5. This thing is incredible.
Oh, it does.
I
look
love
good.
the steelbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the back has the
nice.
dragon on it, 3-headed dragon. Mm-hmm. The steelbook is fantastic. I wish the movie was as good as the steelbook though. Even half as good as the steelbook.
Yeah,
looks. But yeah, a half star. Like Tyler said, there are worse movies. The one I can think of off the top of my head is Dragon Ball Evolution. That's a pretty terrible movie. But this movie angers me so.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm turning this. You know what? I had it on. I'm going to turn it off.
I think that says it all right there. So, well, we'd love to know what you think about Transformers the Last Night. Are we
even though we already know what you think about?
I was going to say, are we way off base? Probably not. But we'd love to hear from you. You can always leave us a comment at cinemaheroes.com. You can also tweet at us or comment on our Instagram. Both handles are at cinemaheroes. Or you can leave a comment on this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I think that about wraps it up for this episode, though. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm really angry.
I'm Mind of a Nerd.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.